right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Bob Pompeani with you until 11 o'clock tonight. And again, a reminder, join us tonight at 11:35 for the #1 Cochrane Sports Showdown. Action-packed edition of this one with a lot of football talk. We'll get into the Penguins free agency, trade deadline deals, all that kind of stuff coming up. But the big news, of course, tonight, and we talk about that right off the bat, is DK Metcalf, who comes to Pittsburgh in exchange for a 2025 second-round pick and a $150 million new contract that the Steelers will give him, $30 million a year, which, of course, leads to the obvious question, what happens to George Pickens now? At 412-575-2600, call us and air your opinions, because Pickens has 1 year left on a deal. He would like a new deal. However, they were hesitant to do it, given some of the stuff that happened over the past couple of years. His talent is undeniable, but his behavior sometimes left a lot to be desired. And maybe that impacted this deal, maybe not. Bottom line is they have a wide receiver #1 who's been one of the more consistent guys now in the NFL over his 6 years, and he's only 27 years old. Pickens is a lot younger, but he also, again, comes with that baggage we spoke of. So the question is, do they keep him? It'd be a good 1-2 punch to have two of those guys for 1 year, though. And if you do that, you wouldn't get much after that, as he would become an unrestricted free agent. Or do you trade him before the draft? Do you trade him at the trade deadline? You can do a lot of different things with him, but it looks like a contract is not going to be one of those options. 412-575-2600 is the number to call. They certainly upgraded their offense with him. And when you consider that next year Troy Fautano will be back after missing all of last year with his injury, that gives you a bona fide right tackle. Now, if Broderick Jones can move to the left side and be good there, with Frazier at center, McCormick, who's emerged as a right guard, I mean, this team could certainly put together a pretty good offense, you would think. I would also imagine that they're going to open things up on this offense. You don't bring in a guy like Metcalf without doing that. So a lot of good stuff going on there, but still the question is, and this is a $64,000 question, who is your quarterback? Still nothing from Fields, from Wilson, none of those guys yet. Sam Darnold somehow has emerged into this. Diana Rossini has pointed that out, saying the Steelers are interested and they could make an offer. So the question is, with Metcalf here, it's much more advantageous to be a quarterback here. But I still think their first priority should be, and maybe is, Justin Fields. But he may test the market. And why not? He's waited this long, although the acquisition of Metcalf may have perked up his interest there. What do you do here? Do you go with Fields? I don't think Wilson is an option, really, unless they really don't have any other option. Or do you turn to Darnold, who's coming off a really good season in Minnesota, but he's been up and down. Remember, he's the quarterback who once saw ghosts, as they said, in New York. He's been with a number of teams, but he got a system that was really good for him. He had also Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to throw to. That made a big difference. Hawkinson, their big tight end. So they had weapons there. Would this attract him here, and do you think that's a good deal for the Steelers? 412-575-2600. It's going to be crazy starting tomorrow and for the next couple of days. We'll see a lot of big deals. Another one that's interesting is what happens with T.J. Watt, because Watt, like George Pickens, has 1 year left on a contract. He would like a new one. And over the past week, his bargaining position just got better and better and better. Here's why. Max Crosby just 4 days ago signed with the Raiders. New deal, $35.5 million per year, 90-some million in guarantees. You thought that broke the bank. And then Myles Garrett, who said he would never play in Cleveland. What's he do? Not only does he come back and play in Cleveland, he gets a no-trade clause to stay in Cleveland. That's after they gave him a deal that, when you add on what he already has, amounts to, I think, a 6-year deal over $200 million, $123 million guaranteed. What in the world will T.J. Watt want? 412-575-2600. We'll take a break. We got a lot of calls. We're going to get to them. Your thoughts on that? Penguins won a game today. Sidney Crosby had a couple. Marc-Andre Fleury, his swan song as far as playing against the Penguins. We'll get into that and much more. Call us. This is your chance to do it. It's the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. We're here 7 nights a week on KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan. Welcome back. Our tweet of the night, brought to you by Xfinity Mobile, is from PFF Steelers, DK Metcalf is one of the best big down the field targets you're going to find. These are the numbers for 20-plus yard targets last season. 16 receptions, that's first in the NFL. Almost 500 yards on those 16 receptions, fourth in the NFL. 5 touchdowns, second in the NFL, and a second grade from PFF. So this is a guy who's dynamic. Not only that, but he's really good at run blocking. And the Steelers obviously like their wide receivers to be able to run block. Well, he can do that. I posted a video on Twitter. I remember this from a few years ago where there was an interception by Buda Baker from Arizona, and he had to run him down. He was in the vicinity, like 10 yards behind him. He caught him. And that says a lot about his willingness to win and compete. That's one of the things that George Pickens didn't do enough of. There were times that he seemed to stop on routes and didn't complete plays. Well, Metcalf on that play alone showed you that he was doing his best to keep his team in the game when it looked like it was going to be a short pick 6 that day for Buda Baker. Anyway, it's 412-575-2600 is the number to call. Let's get to the lines. They're active. They're jumping. Ron in Johnstown is first up tonight. Hello, Ron.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, since they signed Metcalf, and Wilson and Metcalf seemed like they had a good rapport together, you think that's more leaning towards Wilson? And also, with the number of good defensive backs out there for agency, you think they will go after a good another defensive back to go with Hal Porter in defensive backfield?
Yeah, I think they do need a complement to Porter. I do think they'll be active there, and if it's not here in free agency, it will be during the draft for sure. You know, but they still, I would think, depending on what they do here with quarterback, are going to draft a quarterback for their future needs, and whether it's this year or next. Next year seems to be deeper, more opportunities there to get one of those kind of guys. We'll see how that works out. Yeah, but they have a lot to worry about here with money. That's the thing. They have money to spend. Well, they've already spent a lot of it on Metcalf. They're going to have to spend more on T.J. Watt, especially if he wants more than what Garrett got. Not sure how that's going to play out. That's a lot of money. And then they have a quarterback to worry about. If it is a Wilson or Darnold, you're talking $40 million range, $30 to $40 million range. So if I had to ask you, which of those two would you like, Darnold or Wilson? At this juncture, because Darnold's younger, I probably would go in that direction. But I still think my belief is they're going to try to figure out a way to get Fields to sign. He may test the waters and see what's out there. The Jets seem to be interested, but I think that's still their priority. You can save some money that way. Also, give him a chance to do a full year, see where that takes you. He could move himself into a better position. I'm not ruling that out. I've seen guys develop. Sometimes it takes more years than you think. So those are all on the table right now. Let's go back to the lines. We got Matt in Greentree who joins us here on the Sports Call. Hello, Matt.
Hey, Buck. How you doing?
Good. What's up, man?
Hey, I was probably one of the most excited people when Wilson came to Pittsburgh because of being a fan of his going back to his college days. But I read in the offseason last year he had the third slowest release in the NFL, and with our offensive line, I'm like, that's just a recipe for disaster. And being a fan of the wide receiver position since I was a young kid, I gained to understand without an offensive line and a quarterback that has some time, it might be hard to get Metcalf the ball, and maybe Metcalf may have lost a step or two since he's been in the league quite some time. Now, if they got rid of Pickens and kept Metcalf, I think that would be detrimental because at least now, even though he may have lost a step, you have to choose who you're going to guard, and it might open up even the middle for Freiermuth too. But it's all about the offensive line. If they do keep Wilson, and if they don't with Fields, he can, of course, run the ball, but his arm is pretty erratic and inconsistent, though.
Well, I say this, man. His arm still has pop in it. He can throw the ball. It's just about making the right decisions and his willingness to stay in the pocket more, not just, run away from it. And I think that's going to be something that he can develop here. I really do. I think last year was probably good for him. I'm sure he didn't like being taken out after 6 games. He was doing a fairly good job at that point. Sure wanted to see then. Looking back, it would have been more beneficial to them to get a whole season of evaluation under Justin Fields, but they went with Wilson. Wilson, I think they'd be better off moving away from him, all due respect and his resume and everything, but man, they got some weapons. If they keep both, I still see it's unlikely to keep Pickens here if they're going to keep Metcalf at that price tag, because he's going to want a lot of money. And they're not going to want to just, unless they franchise him and have 2 wide receivers. That's the same kind of situation Cincinnati finds themselves in right now with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Let's go to Bert in Rosshaver, who's on the line right now. What's up, Bert? How are you?
Hi, Bob. Yeah, I'm wondering two things. Sam Darnold, a guy like him, are they really going to have the money to sign him too with this kind of deal? And the other thing is, I believe DK Metcalf had a serious neck injury in college before he came out. Now, he's had 5 good years, but last year his touchdowns fell off, I guess, about 10 a year to 5, and he had under 1,000 yards for the first time, I believe. I'm just wondering if there's any indication that this is the kind of thing that might end up catching up with him over time. That kind of thing can happen. I hope not, but he's a great receiver, and hopefully they can bring in some running backs and defensive linemen, because there's plenty of those. They should still be able
That's going to be the number one target, I think, in the draft, Bert. I think they're going to go after defensive line. I think they like what they have there. There's some quarterbacks that have moved up the board, but again, I don't know that they're going to do that right off the bat here in the first round. A lot of this is predicated on what they do. If they sign Justin Fields, I could see them drafting a quarterback. If they don't, then I can see them going defensive line in the first 2 rounds, actually. But, if you're doing Darnold, he's going to want several years here. He's going to want one of those contracts that most of these quarterbacks get these days. The market just went up again because Josh Allen just got redone. Even though he had 4 years left on a contract, they gave him $330 million, $250 guaranteed. So now I'm sure Patrick Mahomes is sitting there thinking, okay, thank you very much for that. But even a guy like Darnold, it trickles down to all of these guys and how much money they're willing to take. So I'm not sure what it would take. He's talking 40 to 50 million a year. We've seen good Darnold. We've seen bad Darnold. We saw him operate very well in the system last year until the playoffs, and the last game of the year wasn't all that great. But is he an upgrade? I've seen some good throws from him, and I know that they can certainly benefit if he's on his game. But, offensive line, all of it has to come together. There's still a lot of work to be done. Let's go to Josiah in San Antonio, Texas. What's up, Josiah? How are you?
What's up, Bob? I got a tough couple of points. I think this can work with Pickens and DK. Look, if you look around the league, like the Rams, they have Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. You look at Miami, they got Waddle and the other receiver. But the point is, the dynamic duo can work, and I think they should bring back Pickens after this deal. And let me ask you this real quick, Bob. I think they should target Mike Hilton. I know he's an older guy. He was a good nickel corner, and I think they do need one more cornerback to at least pair up with Joey Porter.
Well, he's more of a slot guy. I'd like to see a pure outside guy. I think there are a couple of available in free agency. I don't know how much money it would take to get them, but they're going to target that position, no doubt. But I still think, the primary goal here in this draft especially will be defensive linemen and some guys who can make a difference. Some of the guys they have drafted there over the years have not panned out the way they want. Leading that list is DeMarvin Leal. Loudermilk's on that list. There are a lot of guys. Even Benton last year, he was good, but I expected more, I guess, from him. So that's a position they need to upgrade for sure. Let's go to Al and Clarion. Al, you're on the Nightly Sports Call. How are you?
Hey, Bob. Good to talk to you again. Just a couple of points I want to make and then see what you think. First of all, I think Omar did a great job with the Metcalf signing. It was needed. But without a doubt, I agree with you that I really think they have to move Pickens. It doesn't make any sense to keep him because he knows, everyone, the whole world knows that he's not going to get an extension. So you could have an unhappy guy, and you know how he is when he's unhappy. If they can get a second-round pick to recoup the Metcalf trade, it'd be great, but I would even take a third. That's first of all that. And as for the quarterback situation, I hope Metcalf doesn't have a great relationship with Russ because I don't want to see Russ Part 2, the sequel. I just hope that they and Darnold is way too expensive. It just makes no sense for that. I would just everything I can to get Fields. Hopefully Metcalf is a shiny new toy that'll entice Justin Fields to stay. And that's all I want to say, Bob.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Al. Thank you. But if they do somehow, some way end up with Wilson, and if you think that relationship had something to do with this signing, you may as well bring Tyler Lockett in too and just make it a trio of guys who used to do their thing out in Seattle. I don't see that happening. I still think that's their primary target is Fields. If that does not work out, if he goes to free agency market and finds out the Jets want him and are willing to pay a lot more, then so be it. Then they'll have to move to something else. But I still think that's their top priority. Whether or not it develops into something beyond that, we'll see. But again, tomorrow you'll learn more because legal tampering means it's really they're signing contracts. They're agreeing to contracts. They can't actually execute them until Wednesday, but they will agree, and you'll hear a lot of news, no doubt. Ron in Greensburg, real quick, can you make it? Hello, Ron.
Yeah, Bob, nice to talk to you, fellow Pioneer.
Thank you, sir. I was just there today.
I just wonder what they would tell Metcalf about what the quarterback situation. How are you going to get a guy to come in here without knowing?
Well, maybe he does know.
Quarterback situation.
Maybe he does know. You know, I mean, I wouldn't rule that out. If you're DK Metcalf, you also want to, you want to know who your quarterback is. No question about that. Although, as I said with Myles Garrett, money starts talking, and you can say, well, I want to know who my quarterback is. Well, I'll never play in Cleveland again. All of a sudden, they're throwing you all sorts of cash. That changes your opinion on a lot of things. But I got to believe that he asked that question, right? Who's going to be the quarterback? What's the plan at quarterback? We'll see what the answer is in the next coming days. We're due for a break. We'll take it, come back with more. 412-575-2600. It's the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call right here on KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan.